Can you come to the seating area? It is past 2 p.m. Good morning, Paul and Archbow. To the seating area. Oh, did you last week school? Kind of me too, actually, but I think I'm done like May 10th. So, yeah, very exciting. It is me, Marushi, in the flesh, back again. Hello, YouTube. Hello, friends. Yeah, I know you guys had, was it 2 weeks of Alan or 1 week of Alan?
I know.
You did a great job. You piece, indeed. But yeah, I'm back because if you haven't heard yet, Time has COVID again from moshing. I express my regret and deep condolences for his lack of attendance today. But yeah, if you guys all want to come reflect through worship, I think this would be a good time to do that.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, right. You're right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, teacher.
So before we start, can we just talk to the person next to us how your week went, and if school is ending soon for you, and if you're already out of school, how's your job or work? Yeah. Talk to each other. Thank you.
Alan, how's your job?
Okay. I was eavesdropping, and John has a lot of projects due. Not yet, but soon he will have a lot of projects due. Okay. Well, I'm glad that we took some time to get to know a little bit more about each other and our schedules and how our daily lives look like. But yeah, let's just prepare our hearts for worship. Can we all rise? Thank you. Okay. Dear God, thank you for just bringing us out on a Sunday evening. Lord, I pray that we would just really worship you well this Sunday. I pray that throughout this week, no matter how busy our schedule is, we would still keep you in our hearts and keep you in our mind. In Jesus' name, amen. pray that you just prepare our hearts for Sunday worship. Prepare our hearts for the sermon that Pastor Kelvin is about to bring. I pray that we would just be receptive towards all the things that you have to show us. And I pray that when you speak to us, Lord, I pray that we would be able to listen to you. God, make this heart obedient. And make this a heart that yearns for you. In Jesus' name. There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Was another in the fire. There's a grace. There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. Was another in the fire. Standing next to me was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how I've been set free? There's a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There's another in the fire. All my tent left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. I know I will never be alone. Was another in the fire. Standing next to me was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how I've been set free? Is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. There's another in the fire, another in the waters. Should I ever need reminding, good you've been to me. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Count the joy come every battle, 'cause I know that's where you'll be. Dear God, thank you for gathering us all here today on this Sunday evening. Like our prayer earlier, Lord, I pray that you just prepare our hearts. I pray that we would be receptive to you. And I pray that you make our hearts obedient with our yearning for you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Hello. Thank you, worship team. And today is May, and happy May. I saw this picture of an egg on Canva, and I was like, I really like this egg. So I usually like my eggs over hard, like crispy, like fried egg, crispy. I don't know, it's because my mom wouldn't let me eat like raw eggs when I was a kid. But I will eat all eggs, so. Over easy is pretty good. But yeah, my breakfast every day is egg and toast. Like some kind of egg, and then like milk bread toast, which is why I'm like obsessed with the Flushing Bakery. No, soy sauce.
What?
What kind of Chinese person are you?
You know, salt and pepper. Didn't eat it then.
Brandon, how do you feel about egg? This is really sad. Pauline, how do you feel about eggs? What kind of eggs do you like? Same. Okay, good. Christian, do you like eggs? What kind of eggs do you like? Okay, acceptable. A little stereotypical, but yeah. Okay. Next. Hello? This is not. Hello. Okay. Hello. So offering. You guys do this. Hopefully, you guys see the slide every week. GCCBronx.zell@gmail.com or basket. Although no one ever uses the basket, but I would encourage you to use the basket if you have cash. Next, general updates. There's this really scary croissant, and then I put a strawberry on it because Angela asked me to put a strawberry on it. First, offering. For March, the total offering contribution was $33,000 something, and then the remaining balance is actually negative for the first time ever. I think the church has a lot of other money, but
have surplus from the
yeah, it's like only like we spent that much, but it's not like the bank account is like $22,000 in debt. You know what I mean? Due to like insurance payments for Bayside and
Allie, that's what
Flushing
you're offering,
and the
man.
vans.
That's why.
I'm going there right now. I'm sending it.
Yeah, and then they also said on the. I was gonna put this on the slide, but then it was too long. There's also like $50,000 that's supposed to go to the Bronx that the finance department will send after. Huh? GCCBronx.zell@gmail.com. Do you know how to spell? Have you lived in New York?
Is this your first time giving offering?
Oh, usually it's automatically saved in. It's just, you know, it's just not saved in. Is it .com?
Gmail.com. There's no gmail.org.
Oh, it's gmail.com. Oh my goodness.
There is a gmail.org.
Alan, it's right here. Yo. Yo.
Now we know how much he gives.
From my paycheck that I haven't
So true.
yet.
Okay. Next, Children's Sunday School. Thanks Wayne and Brianna for helping redecorate the basement and helping the kids prepare gifts for Mother's Day and Father's Day. More general updates that are kind of. Oh, I did put it on the slide. I didn't even remember. Okay, this is what happens when I do slides at like 1 a.m. Pancake, jam, waffle, and then thank you, Pastor Tiffany, for helping me design the banners for Bayside Training School. Next, speaking of Mother's Day is next week. You guys should all be nice to your moms, now and also next week. But yeah, the 2 bacons, that could be you and your mom. So don't forget to come at 10 a.m. because we have joint service. Bacon is kind of mid. I'm not gonna lie. As just bacon, it's like I feel like it's never that good. I don't like it when it's too crispy. It hurts my mouth. Okay. Next, GCC Boba Chats. Cute little toast/toaster strudel thing. Yeah, it kind of looks like a Pop-Tart too, but I think it's in the shape of a bread. Andrew's in the back. Times is at home. But if you want to Boba Chat me, I almost said coffee chat because I'm indoctrinated by the Leonard and Stern School of Business. But if you want to Boba Chat me, I would love to Boba Chat any of you guys. So yeah, use that fund. Lastly, talk to Pastor Calvin. He's very lonely, sitting in his office by himself all the time. His Calendly is so open. You guys should put some time on it. Yeah. And I will pray for offering before I forget. Okay. Dear Jesus, thank you for this beautiful day today. Thank you for everyone here. I just want to pray for the offering. Pray that these funds would be going to good use. Pray that this church would steward them well. I pray that you continue to grow GCC as a cool place for you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, Marva. No icebreaker today, I guess, right?
We did an icebreaker.
You did?
And then Alan asked me so many questions about eggs.
That's not an icebreaker. That's just we just know, Marva, you have very boring taste of eggs. Very Chinese, over hard,
Over easy.
with soy sauce on top, right?
Crispy eggs.
Just a reminder for you guys. Every first Sunday of the month, we're having communion, and so we join the CM for communion. So if you guys can make it at 11:30, it would be beneficial to do it together. We're not gonna do 2 p.m. communion for a while, so it's a better time for us just to gather. Normally, routinely, if anything, we might have to change things up, but really hope you guys can just come in and support us. And it's not really for us to support us; it's really for your own benefit. Right? Communion is such an important piece of our faith. If you guys were here, Pastor Chan kind of did a sermonette about it, so I'll leave that to if you know who. Alan was here, so ask Alan. Right? Why do you always have to sound like Marco? I asked for Alan, not Marco. Right? Secondly is we're next week is Mother's Day, and the church wants to do joint service. Okay, normally we only do joint service on Sundays twice a year for baptism, for Easter and Christmas service. But this year we want to incorporate Mother's Day because I think sometimes mothers aren't celebrated enough. So our church wants to do a collaborative kind of joint service, especially because Sunday school does like a appreciation type of ordeal. We're supposed to just say a few words and then get roasted for not speaking our mother tongue, right? And so don't worry, this year we got it, right? Alan's gonna train some youth group kids. Support us here. Worship team's gonna be leading worship for us here. Reflect is going to worship for us, and so it's going to be a good time. And so, guys, if you guys can, please come attend and support us. We are going to have probably a modified 2 p.m. service like we did for Easter, and maybe we'll do something fun. Last time we were supposed to go ice cream, and you guys all abandoned me, and Brianna and Amy, and having ice cream.
Actually, you abandoned us. It was K-barbecue all along.
That's only if Tom was paying.
It was K-barbecue all along.
He was planning that for like
I'm just double
What, you guys never even went to O2 yet, so technically we still all been. But last time I went to get ice cream with Brianna and Amy, it was the saddest moment because it was cloudy, it was about to rain, and Brianna just picked up her ice cream and she just left. Right? So we'll see what maybe we'll just like we'll just spur of the moment next week and we'll just gather and who knows, maybe we'll chat here for like 50 hours like we always do and I have to kick you guys out, right? But we'll see how it goes next week, all right? So please come through and support us as we go. Cool. All right, beautiful people. Thanks for seeing you guys once again. Welcome back, Marva. Oh, Marva's been in the back. Welcome back, Marva from In the Flesh. Okay, full of immunity right now. Welcome back, Karen from Hawaii. She looked like she was having a blast. Even though it could just be a one-day pictures, but and she's just a very good Instagrammer, so she weaves it out throughout the week. So yeah, welcome back guys. We're gonna continue on our talk in parables as we go through another parable today. So we're gonna continue on the same flow from last week's parable of the parable of the weeds. So we're just gonna go to the next parable after that as we go today. And so I want to talk to you guys about patience. How many of you guys are patient people? Patience. Really? Christian. Okay, Christian's the most patient person. Who's the most patient person here in this room? Is that true? Okay. Who's very patient? Like who can't wait? Who's good at waiting? John?
One time I went to the gym and I had to take the bus. He waited in the locker room for 3 hours.
Oh yeah.
Did it take you 3 hours to get there, or it's just circumstances?
I think I just got on the wrong bus.
3 hour bus? Where'd you go? Like Pennsylvania?
I don't know, but he was like, "Yeah, it's fine. You want to have a workout, bro?"
Okay, patient in scenarios, right? A lot of things around us test our patience, right? How about something like really exciting? Like, how many of you guys like the type like can't sleep the night before, or like something exciting happens, right? Right? Isn't it so ironic because like when we stay up all night, like imagine like I know summer's coming, the girls always have season pass to Six Flags, right? Or stuff like that, right? Did I call you out? I'm sorry. Right? You know how like we get so excited, like and then we didn't sleep the night before, and then when things actually happen, it's not so exciting anymore. Does that ever happen to y'all? Alright, so he's very patient then, right? So how many guys are like me? Like how many guys are Amazon shoppers? I know Karina's not because she's against that company for some reason, and then she shops at it anyways.
Alright.
Or maybe she graduated from Bing, so no longer like you're no longer politically correct anymore.
If
Right?
you can't beat them, join them.
Yeah, I know. Welcome to corporate society, right? But how many of you guys like when you guys Prime on Amazon, you make sure it's like next day delivery kind of thing, or like the one day thingamabob? It's Prime. It should be free, right? You don't have Prime? Oh, right. You're out of college. Right? But you know how like you wait, like how many guys like get you guys know that like Prime, Amazon does this thing where like they delay, like even though it's supposed to be one day package, they could also like delay it, and you have to like personally like scroll through and make it like next day. You guys notice that too? Wow. Amazon actually delivers groceries around here. From Amazon. Wow. Your dad is milking technology. Your dad is so like tech savvy. It scares me sometimes. You know he got us like an anti-flooding like detection device in the church.
What?
I didn't even know that existed. So he's like oh you want to get text messages? Like no, Marco, I don't want any text messages. But apparently like when it floods in the basement, does get text messages.
Oh, go check the.
Right. Talking about that, do you guys know that our drainage got like was messed up this whole weekend?
What?
Yeah. Well, luckily I caught it because I was like, why are the water coolers all broken? Like, why are they not on? And then yeah, I called your dad yesterday, just in time.
Do we have to pay the?
No, just in time. Okay. So long story short, don't flush. I know we got free Lysol wipes. Don't flush them down the toilet, please. Okay? If you find somebody that flushes them down the toilet, please attack them and make sure that they never do it again. Okay? Use that cryptically, okay? Okay. But let's go back. So, see, the problem is, like, many of us, we are patient in good things, but some things, like, when we really, really want it, it's harder and harder and harder and harder to be patient for. Right? And I think sometimes, like, when we think about this narrative of the kingdom, like, you hear about this story about, like, this good stuff, right? About God, about Jesus, and you know, it's not really happening in our perspective, is it? Like, you know, when we bought into this faith, we recognized and we noticed that, you know, God is going to do something great among us, but sometimes in our vicinity, like, we don't see it, we don't notice it, we recognize, and sometimes it does frustrate us. Like, how come I'm still in this mess? How come, Lord, like, this is happening to me, right? And you have to realize this, like, this is how the people in Jesus' time was seeing things, right? They saw, like, this great thing coming. It's kind of like, you know, sleeping the next day, and they're just waiting for it, and God is somehow withholding this coming of this kingdom. And people didn't understand. People didn't get it, right? And, you know, one of the important principles of faith is this concept, and it's also of life. It's called delayed gratification. Right? And less and less of us are enjoying things in life because things are coming at us at rapid pace now. And you know, one excitement, like one milestone in our lives, can only last us maybe a day of excitement, and then we forget about it. It dwindles, it drifts away, right? But for some reason, the kingdom is causing us to wait. So we get all these snippets of the kingdom, and we should be excited for what the fullness of the kingdom, but still somehow in our minds, in our perspective, like, it's not as gratifying as it should be. And so you got to think about what's going on in Jesus' time. Okay, so everybody who's followed Jesus knew one thing, right? Jesus was the way, okay, or the Hebrew word is. What's the last one? Well, what's the Hebrew word? Yeah, okay, there we go. Right? He was a Messiah, right? He's supposed to be the saving one. He's supposed to be the king that will usher in this new kingdom, right? And so, you know, time has gone by, right? You know, a certain time they've been following him. He had big crowds, and you know, people are always anxious about, like, is kingdom coming? Is it coming? Is it happening? Is it here? Like, you know, I'm still in bondage of Roman Empire. Like, are you gonna do something? Like, Jesus, what's going on? What's up here? What's up, right? And yeah, it was in their mind. And then that's why Jesus brought out all these parables here in this part, right? So last week we talked about the weeds, right? The fact is that we're called to live in this life. There's going to be discomfort in our lives. But we know that in the end, God will separate the good and the bad. But there's going to be discomfort here in this time. And so he continues on in this talk as we talk into it. And we're going to go into this, what we call the parable of the mustard seed. And if we talk about the mustard seed, we have to talk about the other parable after that, which is the yeast, right? And so in Matthew 13, verse 31 and 33, okay, this is not if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, right? Right, you know, this is the mustard seed being sowed, right? Don't forget, it makes sense, okay? Because they first sowed parable of the sower, parable of the weeds, and now parable of the mustard seed, right? So, you know, it's kind of fitting in the same idea of agriculture, right? And then even the yeast, right? The produce of agriculture, right? So the word of the Lord says this, right? He told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a mustard seed which a man took and planted in his field. Though it is the smallest of all seeds, yet when it grows, it's the largest of garden plants and becomes a tree, so that birds come and perch in its branches. He told them still another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like yeast that a woman took and mixed into 60 pounds of flour until it worked all through the dough. Okay. So, parable of the seed and yeast. Okay, you know, politically correct or scientifically correct, mustard seed is not the smallest seed. Okay, So stop saying Jesus is wrong. Jesus Jesus is a liar. Okay. He was just using an example. Okay. So don't go so hardcore. You have to be right in about everything. Okay. Just putting that out. But this parable has been kind of spoken of, and especially in this whole build-up of the weeds and stuff, is oftentimes like there's multiple interpretations as we try to put these things together, and the idea is these threefold parts. One is the idea the kingdom will eventually come, right? The kingdom will eventually come. It's going to show up eventually. It's going to ripen and it's going to show up in front of us. Okay. Another interpretation is the idea of small beginnings. Right? The kingdom is going to start from small beginning, a small group of people, and it's going to go into a big thing, right? And we call that the missional interpretation, right? And then the last part is it starts with one thing, one small element, and it's supposed to kind of point to Jesus. Jesus is going to be the catalyst, the yeast, the seed that will branch into this huge thing. And these are kind of the typical interpretations of these parables, but as we talked about from the beginning of this series, that if parables aren't challenging, we haven't captured the parable yet. Parables are supposed to do two things, right? Challenge those who are proud, and it's supposed to encourage those who are humbled. Encourage those who are struggling, and when they hear this word, they're encouraged and say yes, right? And so what is Jesus trying to talk about here is this fact is that we have to be patient. There's a connection about being patient and being uncomfortable from the last parable. You see, we can live in discomfort a lot of times, but the question is, are we able to also be patient in our discomfort? That's a little bit hard at times, right? We're willing to live uncomfortably. That's easy, but can we live also with patience? Like, if your life, wherever it is right now, stays in this season for this long, are you willing to endure it? Or is there a groaning and grunting about, I want to change? Right. Many will want to change, especially if you are in a difficult place, difficult part. And so we have to start to recognize and understand, like, what is the kingdom going to look like? And so, how is the kingdom going to come is so basic and so simple. The fact is that when God brings the kingdom into reality. And so this parable of the mustard seed and the yeast is supposed to teach us some principles of what we do while we wait for the kingdom to come into fulfillment in our lives. And so I'm going to give you guys 3 principles that you can draw out from these 2 parables as we parallel them and explain it and discuss it. So the first one is this, okay? The first one is sometimes in our life when we think about the kingdom is we have to leave it alone. We have to leave it alone. There's too many cooks in the kitchen sometimes when we try to do stuff for the kingdom, when we try to usher in the kingdom, sometimes we just gotta leave it alone, right? And so you have to see from these 2 parables, right? The seed has to be sown, and then you have to leave it alone, right? If you keep poking at it, it's not going to grow, is it? We have to water it and leave it alone and let it germinate, and it'll sprout and grow, right? The yeast too, right? You can't speed up the process of yeast. How many bakers out there? Bread bakers? Right? How many bakers out there? Pauline says otherwise, right? You have to let the yeast rise. You can't usher, you can't force it, you can't push it. You gotta let it rise. And sometimes the kingdom, we want to push it fast, we want to push it soon. We want it to kind of grow and happen, but it's not going to happen. It's God's timing that matters. It's not about what we can do. And so here's a problem. A lot of us, we think we have to do something for this kingdom so zealously that we're actually hindering the growth of the kingdom, right? There are ideas and ways and narratives about how can we speed up Jesus' return. And so there's this huge movement back in the beginning of the U.S. history where everybody's we have to purge the heathens. right? We have to spread the gospel to the ends of this world, and then Jesus will come, right? Because like that's what Jesus says. And and they took it so seriously that they tried to go all over the place. And guess what happened right now? Like you know, a lot of cultures are really against faith and Christianity because of this whole like crazy outpouring movement of evangelism that we're still learning how to cope with and kind of deal with and handle, right? Because a lot of times we're called to leave it alone, right? How many of you guys ever tried cooking with like a bunch of group of people? Ever had like a hangout and then you're like, oh, let's cook, and then there's too many cooks in the kitchen, right? How was the outcome? I know John can make some pretty good food, right? John can make some pretty good sauce. He's saucier, right? I think in the group here we could probably create a line, right? But I remember when back in one of my old churches we had a mission trip one time. We went to Arizona, right? And as they were coordinating and organizing, they decided that they're gonna do the cooking like procedure, like they're gonna break it into different groupings. So our mission team got broken into groups, and our groups would be responsible for a certain day for a certain meal kind of thing, right? And the problem is like we have so many like very proudful people that want to be master chef. This is gonna be my chance to be the next master chef, right? And so like it was so like disorganized. We ended up spending so much money because like everybody was being hoarders. Like Lily's group can have like they need scallion, we need scallion, but we refuse to share, right? And it became so bad. I had to secretly like during the mission trip, I had to secretly drive out in the middle of the night to pick up like refresh our fridge, because they just kept like overlapping and stealing. But I remember the first night for my group was going for dinner, right? And they decided we were they were trying to do they were like, oh, let's make it something simple. We just make chili, right? John, how long does chili take to cook?
A couple hours.
More than a couple hours. You start in the morning, and by the time you come home, it should be done, right? And so we had and in my group we had like two guys who were supposed to be like very, very good at cooking, right? One guy he made halal the first night kind of thing, right? He made his own white sauce. He made his own and so like everybody's like trying to warm up each other, right? And so we had this huge pot of chili, and then my other friend he accidentally poured too much water in it, right? Too much water in it, right? So his idea was, I'm gonna rapid boil this. So he rapid boiled this, so the bottom of the pot was burnt, right? But we just rapid boiled it because we're like, it doesn't matter, we're running out of time, right? So he's like stirring the pot, rapid boiling, right? And then the other guy, he was like, yo, we gotta clump it up, we gotta let it like harden, right? We gotta let it gloop up, right? And so he's like, you just gotta throw more ingredients in there. So he just like emptied out the fridge and started throwing all the ingredients he found in the fridge, right? And it was not because when you wash vegetables, there's liquid. And so you're just adding more water into it, right? And so we're back in square one, right? And so these guys, older guys, they went for a cigarette break. Think about that, right? They went for a cigarette break, right? And so I was the only one in the kitchen, and I was like, okay, dinner time is in 30 minutes. There's only one way to save this. I'm Asian, so what's the Asian secret of glooping something? Starch. So what'd you get? Cornstarch, right? But we were in Arizona in a white mission like base, right? So there's no cornstarch. There's no potato starch. There's only flour. And I know like they say like flour like you can because like when you make gravy you use flour, right? You don't use cornstarch, right? So but flour changes the taste, right? But I was in that spur of the moment. I didn't know how long like people take cigarette breaks. So I was panicking. So I was reaching out for it from the top, and I was like, the enemy had the knife from the last parable, right? I'm sowing weeds into the field. So I started shaking the flour. But I should have measured. I just shook it in there, and then accidentally like. And so I was like, I started stirring, right? And yeah, it started glooping up. But you ever like stir like powder into, what happens? You get like those doughy like those like the surface is cooked but inside is just powder. So when you bite into it, it's just right. And so I was like trying to mash them off. And luckily, I got all the sediments down on the bottom, so when they came in for the cigarette break, they're like, oh, it's done. It worked, miracle, right? Then they were like, I was like, deep in the night, right? It was like the worst, like gloopy jalapinous, like nasty chili we ever had, but no one complained because you're not supposed to, right? We're supposed to be good Christians. We keep things. So in the future, when we finally had another mission trip, we just made it simple. I did all the cooking. Way better. I spent like 70% less than what we spent on that trip. What? We're on a mission trip.
That's what I know.
We're on a mission trip. We just need calories. Besides, they were feeding us on as we go at the same time, right? But you know, this is the problem. When we try like so hard to create something that like God is the original, like we can't do what he, like we can't get involved so much with what he does. Sometimes we just have to leave it alone. I know there are things around us in this world that we see that we are angry about and we don't like. But we have to ask ourselves, is God bringing this in solution now? Eventually, if you believe in the gospel, if you believe in the kingdom, then you know that when the kingdom comes, all that is wrong will be made right. But is God calling you, a church, a community, to go after it right now? See, this is the wrestling part, because sometimes we have to just leave it alone. What's the right way to make chili? You put everything in and you let it simmer. You leave it alone. When you start to add things into it, you mess this up. And yes, at the end there will be a byproduct, but is that the byproduct that was intentionally designed for? And so our meal was supposed to be just chili, and it turned into Janopolis like junk, where eventually the cook that was in charge had to make a new meal. And sometimes, like, God has an intention and idea, but when there's so much human hands dirtying the pot, God has to shift the narrative. This is the power of our sovereignty that God has given us. And of course, God has, He has not magically. God has intelligently designed all of this, but the question is, are we taking a long way in our faith? Are we taking a long way in how how the world perceives our faith because of the dirty hands that have been placed into the work? Sometimes it is to leave it alone. That's what this parable is kind of arguing for. Second thing that we're also called to do is get out of the way. Okay? If we don't get out of the way, sometimes we also become a hindrance to the kingdom. And I think we see this a lot right now, especially when we're thinking about like a generational divide in churches, right? Right now it's not just the Asian church. Back in like 20 years ago, it was like only the Asian community, right? But right now it's also generationally, right? You guys know like our other nationality churches are also dying because like generational divide is still not being addressed, right? And you get this, right? So, we hold on to what we believe, what we want, what we like too much sometimes, and that gets in the way. And so when, fresh expressions come out, we tend to try to shoot it down because it's not within our vicinity, it's not within our perspective, and when that happens, we muddy the kingdom again. And sometimes we have to ask ourselves, like, are we being the only one resistant? Sometimes, yes, you are supposed to be resistant because there's some things that God is calling us to do and we have to stand firm. But then there are other times, are we being the one that's creating such a big obstacle for the kingdom to grow, kingdom to move? And that's something to also think about as we go, as we work into this. You see, how the mustard seed grew was a farmer had to sow. How the bread was made was a woman put yeast and kneaded it with her own hands. Mustard seed wouldn't have grown if somebody stopped the farmer from sowing. Bread wouldn't have made if someone stopped this woman from kneading the dough. And we have to ask ourselves this a lot of times. Is our preference of what we want really like in the goodness of the kingdom, or is it goodness of what I want, what I perceive, what I want to see happen? Right? And that is something that we also got to wrestle with. And thirdly is this part. You got to ask ourselves, is the kingdom is supposed to benefit others, so is our actions and our movement and our going for God, is it really kingdom focused? Or is it a focus so that yes, we do it in the name of kingdom, but instead it's not really to elevate the kingdom, elevate faith, elevate Jesus, to raise him up, but it's for us to be acknowledged, for us to be recognized, for us just in general. Kingdom is supposed to benefit others, not just for us. Kingdom elements and kingdom principles in our lives have to come from the goodness of others, for the sake of others. This is what the kingdom is for. It's not just for you, it's for all. You see, when the farmer sowed the seed, it was for all, right? It was even benefiting more than just himself. It benefited even the creatures around him, right? The birds perched onto it, which is kind of like ludicrous, because birds won't put nests in mustard plants, right? But that's what Jesus is trying to explain is the fact is that it's supposed to benefit those around us. The yeast too, right? You guys see her. This woman, she was baking 60 pounds of flour. How many of you guys can consume 60 pounds of flour? Who likes bread? Even Karen can't consume 60 pounds of flour. Oh. You'll either die from dehydration or you'll be full when you drink water. Right? This is what they did back in ancient times. In small villages, they would have a communal kitchen. Actually, they still do it now, right? Some rural places, they still have it, right? Community kitchens, right? And so this lady, she made dough for the whole community. Her action was to benefit those around her. It wasn't just for herself. She wasn't even trying to get known. She was just doing her part for the kingdom. Her part. Just like the farmer. He was farming because why? That's his profession. And so our focus and our actions have to really be kingdom driven. It can't be self-driven. When we self-drive our purposes, then it's not for the kingdom. We can label it as that, but what happens is we're just putting basically a Jesus cherry on top of what we're doing. But in the end, the motive is not for God, for Jesus, it's for ourselves, right? And I remember this. I had this old mentee. He was a very smart guy. He was trying to go into mechanical engineering like John, right? And this guy, he's like my calling is to basically purchase a conference center for Christian conferences. And I was like, okay, right? He's like, yeah, because because he was working with some of us, and he realizes how much money goes into organization of conference rental and all this stuff. So he's like, I'm gonna use my salaries and I'm gonna fund all this stuff, right? And I had to ask him, listen, bud, that sounds great, that sounds pretty cool. But what's your intention? What's the purpose behind it? What are you driving in this? What are you trying to get at? Right? Do you think the kingdom really needs your money, bruh? Right? Or is there something else behind it? Right? Because the truth of the fact is, why does he want to do it? Not from the kindness of his heart that he's doing this. The reason why he's doing this is because he wants his name on a plaque. I was like, many of us we want to pursue upper salary kind of positions and fields, and we should. We do need people of faith in these top tier organizations. But what is the intention behind it? When you say you're doing this for God? Because so quickly and so easily we tend to do this just for the sake of getting our names out there. And then we muddy the picture. And it becomes really, really difficult if like we can't sustain that. Like what if, like, because then if your name is going to be labeled in the banner of God, and if there's fallacy in you, then there's fallacy in God in the eyes of the world. And we're not benefiting each other. And then in the end, it realizes that you're just benefiting yourself. And this is why so many leaders in the church circle, in the Christian community, is falling. It's because we do things in the name of the Lord, and it's not really in the name of the Lord. This is a very important principle we have to realize. And this is what Jesus is saying in this parable, is that we cannot do anything to usher in the fullness of the kingdom. What we can do is this: we can bring a slice of the kingdom to it. Yes, we are going to have to wait for the kingdom to be in fulfillment. Yes, it's going to be uncomfortable. Yes, we're going to have to learn to develop patience so that when that day comes, we're going to be ecstatic, and we're going to stay ecstatic for eternity. But then in our everyday actions today, we have to ask ourselves, like, what can I do to usher in the kingdom for those around us? When you give it all you got, for the sake of the kingdom with no strings attached, it's not about your fame. You know, it's not even for acknowledgement of God. Like, we don't act for acknowledgement from God. Even if we even like, you know, respond for the kingdom for acknowledgement from God, then we have missed the point of faith. Because the fact is, like, it just shows one thing: you still have not understand what grace is. You have still not understand what the cross means. We're supposed, like, you know, one of the struggles right now as I look in faith life is we focus so much on the cross. We understand the cross. We understand Jesus died for us. But we don't understand the resurrection. We forgot that it's not just Christ that has been resurrected. We have been resurrected in Christ. And our lives have to change. Our life focus has to be giving it all we got for the sake of the kingdom. No strings attached. Nothing in response. Nothing at all. But for the sake of God. So as we reflect on this, I want you guys to think about that.
Mommy, Daddy.
I want you guys to recognize this. This is like a very important piece that we tend to forget. And it's going to be, honestly, a wrestle for a lifetime. But once we start to realize this, we become self-aware that this is the truth, that's when we can bring in the slice of heaven to those who need it the most. That we become selfless. That nothing we do is for us, for our own gain. It's when we start to realize this, that we don't have to prove anything on earth, because Christ has done it for us. All that we're trying to prove is really for us, honestly, now on this earth. Because it's not going to give you any merit in heaven. Because Dad has taken care of it. And Dad, after 3 days of that, took care of the other part, which is you are made new. And so yes, life is going to be uncomfortable. Yes, we're going to have to be patient, but also at the same time, we have to see our lives in the eyes of God. What can I do to bring the love of Christ into the vicinity of those around me? Because I have tasted and I've seen, and so I want the world around me to taste and see. And that's the challenge of life as we live. How do we enter the world of the people around us? How can we live? How can we enter the world of people? Can you enter the world of people you don't even like? Can you enter the world of people that you don't even understand because you have nothing in common? But when we understand the kingdom, when we realize the principles of the kingdom, you learn one thing. It's not about what you know, but who He is. It's about that He brought you, He equipped you with things that you can utilize, your giftings. It's supposed to make an impact to bring heaven on earth. Where can you go to really, what can you do? What can you do to bring the kingdom here? Just at least a taste so that people can taste what heaven looks like when it becomes full. It's going to be a place where all wrong is made right. It's a place where there's no more tears, no more suffering, where everybody lives in unity. Under the banner of Christ. That's the kingdom. And we are called to be salt and light to bring that to the world. And so every day as we live, as we wait patiently for that day, our call is to just go out there and make our actions really benefit those around us. So we respond.
Please rise. There's a grace when the hardest times are far. Another way when the walls are closing in. When I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There was another in the fire, standing next to me. Was another in the waters, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding how I've been set free? There is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. My dad left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no that's where you'll be.
So I pray that you'll never forget this one point, is that your life is not of your own now that you have came into this faith. And I think that's the big wrestle of how we can bring heaven on earth, is when we start to realize that and recognize that. You're not living for yourself anymore. You're living for something greater than you know. That in every circumstance there was another. He's in you. And so as we partner with Christ, as we partner with one another, that's when the kingdom can be ushered. And people can see what kingdom would look like. And then they will wait in discomfort, and they will wait patiently for the fullness of that kingdom. So we're called here to be the light in this broken world, to bring love to those who need it the most, to share what we know and not hide it underneath something, but to bring it out to fulfillment, to show one another that we do this out of because of what Christ has done. It has nothing about me. And so my proper worship, just as like the widow would be, is to bring all that I got and bring it before the Lord. May He consecrate all that I can do so that it will benefit the world. And our mind has to shift from that. Our mind has to shift from an economical, like help myself kind of mentality into how can I help those around me. And sometimes it will be sacrificial. Sometimes it's going to be painful. Sometimes it's going to be difficult. But if we do it for ourselves, we're going to get in the way. We're going to muddy what the kingdom should be. So the only thing we can do is to go out there and benefit one another. So I want you guys to just imagine, what are the gifts that God has given you? And how can that be utilized for the kingdom to benefit others? I'm not talking about like your life giftings and stuff like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what can you do for the kingdom that would make impacts, that would change the life of people. You know, like Jesus was very gifted, and you know, a lot of times when he administered his giftings and manifestations and miracles, not everybody that received miracle received him. But he did it anyways, even if it causes him shame. Because the world needs a taste of heaven so that they will know that he is good. And we're called out there. So what do you know and what can you do to bring the love of God for others around us so that we can really live a life? So I want you guys to just imagine and think about that. You know, pulpit confession. I'm so sore like this whole week. I was helping Archie with his car, and I almost died the night when he left. I was dead. I was crying to Lily. I was like, Lily, I'm dying. I might die, so I gotta get my will in check and stuff, right? Because I was like in pain, and Lily was like, "Is Archie paining you?" And I was like, I don't even know why I did it for, right? But you know what? The honest fact is, like, that's a gift that, you know, God has given me, and if I can bring like a piece of heaven to like Archie's like vicinity, I'll go after it. You know, what he's gonna do after that? Like, you know, if has he experienced the love as we were working, as I was praying, you know, in silence for him, as we're doing things. I believe there's a taste of the heaven that came down. It's these small pieces of our lives that we just have to shift our mindset. And that will bring the kingdom, a slice of the heaven to among us. We don't have to do much. You know, like I told John, like when he sets up Sundays, as he sets up the chairs on Sundays, pray over each chair. Because he recognizes that people come in sad and depressed and like weird. So I told him, pray over these chairs. These minute things that you can do just to usher in the kingdom, just so that someone by our actions could experience God. No strings attached. Like John wasn't doing that just so like, yo, John does that holy person. No. That's what we gotta do. One step at a time. Little by little. And then we'll benefit. So Father, I pray that we'll start to see a shift in our mindset. That we stop thinking for ourselves and start thinking for your kingdom. And I pray, Lord, that we would be like the farmer that just sowed the seed, just start something. We would be like this woman who worked hard just for the sake of that community. Because we know that these small actions will create big things. So Lord, may we focus not on ourselves, but focus on you so that we don't muddy the waters. We don't block somebody. And so we bring you all the glory. So Lord, may our community here be a community that will support one another, even in the darkest times and even in the greatest of times. So Lord, that your kingdom would be visible and known and seen throughout the universe. Father, we want to see what you see. We want to experience all that you have for this community. And Lord, as we experience this and know this, may we not hoard it, but may we go out beyond even our community to bring the light of the gospel to the world. So Lord, use us continuously, Lord. And would you continue to shift us and transform us, Lord? And help us to wrestle with these difficult tasks. May it break worldviews, may it break perspectives, Lord, and may we receive the understanding of who you are through your Spirit. Father, would you be with us as we close? So may bless you guys. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. And so may the Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Whatever you're going through, regardless of it's finals or panicking about your career or anything of the like, may the shalom of heaven be in your vicinity. And so may you go forward and go forth and bring the peace of heaven also to those around you. Go in peace. Amen. Thanks, guys, for being here for us today.